Hi, I'm Ron Nutter, and this is another edition of Tech Bites with Ron Nutter. This time, I'm going to help you walk through being prepared for when the power outage hits, and that starts now. This is not something that I would have thought about that much, but I have been hit with 2 different power outages in 3 days. So that got me to really thinking. The first outage was about 30 hours in duration. There were some people who probably didn't have power long after I had got mine. And then the next day, after everybody thought things were stable, I lost power again for, this time was fairly short. It was about 15 minutes. It was just long enough for everything to completely go off and cycle down. So this is a discussion that, while I had planned to have it later on, this is something that I think we've got to really start addressing now. And this will be probably the big part of it, but as refinements occur over time, then, we'll just take that one step as it goes. This is going to be part of the book on making your home work for you. It's a DIY smart home guide, and it's not just getting your lights to work remotely, not just getting your garage doors up, but there's some practical things like looking at a firewall. And this is something that the folks at Rat Trap were very good to send me one of their devices. And this one's very interesting. And this is going to be just like a tease, like they do on some of the TV shows, that this is going to be something I'll be working with quite a bit, because I'm going to put my own network behind this. I'm going to start moving slowly but surely, but you'll start seeing that probably as soon as next week as I do a little bit more. Now, having said that, now on to the slides, because I'm going to walk through this, and most of this is in the description. Unfortunately, the description area on the YouTube videos is not as substantial as I would like it to be. But we're going to cover, what to do before power loss, because there's some things you can do, what to do when power is restored, and then things to look at for avoiding potential device damage from a power loss. So it's all, very straightforward things, but it's something that kind of need to think through the process. Now, what to do before a power loss? There's not a lot, but on the other hand, there's more that you can do that in case the worst happens, it's not going to take you as long to recover. First thing to do is back up any of the device configurations you have. If you've got a Samsung SmartThings hub, if you've got the Logitech Harmony hub that controls your television, there are ways you can back up the configuration. Now, sometimes it's simply backing it up to the cloud account for the company's product you're using. Sometimes there are ways where you can download a local configuration file. And it may be in some devices that all you can do is document the settings of how you got the device configured to what it is. Now, do we all want to do that? No, but would you rather spend a little time now as a part of your smart house or smart home documentation, writing all this down so that when something does happen, if it happens, that you've at least got a little bit easier process to get things back up and running. Now, this is the one that you'll have to develop over time, and that's a test plan. Now, this is something that outside of the business world, you probably haven't thought about, but this came, as they say, the chickens came home to roost for me when I had 2 power outages in 2 days. After the first outage, that got me thinking, okay, what's not working right? And it took me over a day to figure out that one of my hubs wasn't responding the way that it should. And how I finally got that fixed was interesting. But still, go through. The test plan could be, you want it to be more than turn on light A, turn on outlet B. But if you have things such as any special macro setup, or things such as Madame for the Amazon Echo products, Google Home, Google Assistant, even Cortana, you have certain ways of accessing things. This is the kind of thing you need to have documented and should test as a part of your test plan. You may find that a device, although it says it's up, really isn't. But knowing how it should respond, and this is not something, some of these things you may not use every day. So that's even more important to have some sort of troubleshooting plan in place. And that's, you just have to develop that over time. Now, we're going to get to what to do after power is restored. Well, in this world of instant gratification, we want it now, 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 now. Well, it's not going to happen that way. Some of your Internet of Things devices won't come up they'll come up faster than your internet provider's modem or whatever device they've got there to convert between how they're delivering the service to your house and then how you're using it. So be prepared that what you may have to do, and I had to do this myself, is once the internet provider's device is up and running, and you probably better give it at least 5 minutes and maybe 10 to be on the safe side. When you do that, now some of the Internet of Things devices that you're going to have in your network will figure that out pretty quickly, and they'll keep trying. Other devices are going to take a little bit of assistance. So, just main thing is give everything time to start. I was watching the activity lights on both my network switches, and I could tell something was a little bit out of the norm because I saw activity that was uncharacteristic for that time of day and what was going on. So, learning that, and there are some tools you can get as you get more comfortable with what's going on, but stick with the basics for a while on this one. So mainly is you give everything time to start. Now, in single device troubleshooting, it could be as simple as removing power from the device and powering it back up. So say your Roku streaming receiver doesn't get its address and you bring it on the remote, turn on the remote, and nothing seems to be working. Some of the menus are there, but you can't get to the programming. Well, that one's easy. You just pull the power out of the back of the streaming receiver, let it sit for at least 30 seconds and maybe a minute, just so that completely all the power that is in there dissipates and it's down to like it's just been sitting in a box for several weeks. Plug it back in, let it get settled down, and you can probably go around. Now, those kind of things are easy. If you've got a bulb that doesn't want to seem to respond the way it should, it could be a matter of going through a factory reset. I know none of us wants to do it. I know I didn't want to do it. I had one device where the bulb, when the power came back on, the inrush of current was such that it scrambled the brains of that device, so I had to do a factory reset. So knowing how the different devices are put together is important. For example, the Logitech Harmony Hub that I've got. When I first started setting it up, there was a PC app that I used. It was a website that I went to set that up. Well, Harmony's gotten away from that. Now they've gone to a PC app. So, this will also be good from time to time to become familiar with, as there changes, what that you need to do. Now, multi-device, I'm sorry, my slides got stuck here. Multi-device troubleshooting is going to be a little more involved. And I got into this the other day with some of my Samsung SmartThings devices. And I'm not picking on Samsung, but this is the illustration that I've got in this particular case. Several of the devices, I've got several bulbs and a couple of switches, switch outlets, that they weren't responding. That I would go to issue the command, and most of my stuff is voice controlled. So there I had to figure out, was it voice control? Was it in the Samsung SmartThings? And that's where having all of the apps, and we've talked about that briefly in another video, having those on your smartphone and using that as a part of your troubleshooting process and see where the failure occurs. Well, what I had to do, I reset several of the devices, still didn't work. I power cycled the Samsung SmartThings Hub. It came back online. It took a little longer than I expected, but it came back online, or at least that's the indication it gave on the front panel. Well, it didn't. What I finally had to do, and then I even unplugged the network cable. That did not fix it. So what I finally had to do is unplug the cable, power down the device, move the network cable over to a different switch, plug it into the Samsung SmartThing subs, and power it up. In a few minutes, it was just like it was old home week. Everything was working. It was great. But some of how I've had to troubleshoot is going to be different on how you troubleshoot it. So it's learning what's normal for your network and keeping good notes on how you put some of this together, because that's going to help you more than anything else to get things back up and working when there is a problem. Now, we've also got to talk about avoiding potential damage to your IoT devices or your smart house devices, whatever term we use. There are some very basic things you can do right out of the gate. And we'll take the first item off the screen just to make it easier so we don't have to keep scrolling down so far on the page. First thing is turn off the breakers in your house. Anytime you have a power outage, and I'm not as consistent with this as I need to be, and I need to work on that, is you've got two choices. You can either throw the main breaker, or you can shut off all the individual breakers. And I have a tendency to go with the individual breakers. Here's why. That way I can bring the house up in stages, make sure that's all right before I just let power go to everything. And here's where it becomes important. When the power first comes back on, there's going to be an initial inrush of current or power, or however you want to look at it. You know, the power is going to come back in and it's going to rush in, and it's going to startle some things. And I had one device that I thought had gotten damaged by it. Ended up, it just was really scrambled, and it took a couple of restarts to fix it. But turning off the breakers will let the power settle down. There's still going to be a rush of current, but it's not going to be this rush as, you know, the water's coming out of the dam and the little boy's not there to put his finger in the dike to keep it from running through. So, you know, bringing the house up in control stages is a good thing. And especially depending on your power configuration, you could have parts of your house that might have power when it first comes up and parts might not. Those of you that know an electrician, they can get that to explain it to you. It has to do with what's called multi-phase power. And I've had parts of a house not work. And that can even be more damaging because you've got devices such as your home heating and air conditioning system, your freezer in some cases, your heavier duty appliances are going to be more sensitive to that. So that's another reason to think about having the breakers turned off. And I'm not trying to scare anybody, but these are some of my own experiences that I'm putting on the table here. So I'm hoping to help you avoid some problems. Now, the next thing is to use surge protectors. And this can be, you know, kind of a can of worms. I've tried to reach out to both TripLite and APC and have not been able to get them to give me some at least rough guidelines. Where you can, and some devices this is not going to be practical with, but where you can, use some sort of surge protection strip. And there are some advantages. Your better ones will have some sort of warranty with them, so that if the device fails to protect whatever is plugged into it, that not only will they replace the surge protector strip, but they'll replace the devices plugged into there up to some dollar amount. And it could be as little as $5,000. It could be $25,000. Bottom line is, at least it will help with some of the cost and maybe all of the cost, depending on the situation. So that is worthwhile considering. Consider too periodically replacing the surge protector strips, because they do not last forever. And some of your better ones, such as, well, a couple that I've got from APC, and APC is not a sponsor, so I'm not getting any money for saying this. They have two lights on theirs. One is a light that's saying you do have protection, and the other light is saying that there is a problem. And when I found that problem light to go on, yes, there is a problem, Virginia, and you need to deal with it because you've got a potentially serious electrical problem. Now, one school would say, well, just let the protection light go out and then you know you need to replace it. Well, here's the problem. Over time, the electronic components that make up that surge protection piece of the outlet strip are going to weaken, and there's no real good way of being able to tell you, okay, I've only got 25% protection left. I mean, you could have 50% of its safety protection left. One good power surge, it's done, and you may not know it because sometimes with electrical damage, electronic componentry doesn't show the damage right away. It may just start sneaking its way in to where it may be days, weeks, or even months before you start seeing problems. So that's another good reason that at some point, and pick an interval, 2 years, 3 years, just go ahead and replace them. And they can still be used for other things, but just not for your sensitive electronic items. And that will be something that will help save some headache, and it will protect some potentially irreplaceable items from being damaged. Now, you can use a UPS. Now, this is a double-edged sword here. And this is why. There are two kinds of UPSs. There are ones that only protect you from a power drop, or when power goes out, and there are others that protect you from a power loss or a power surge. And a power surge can be sometimes just as damaging as a power loss. But it's not going to help you if, the rest of the house is out, or if some things you need to talk to also don't have power. So don't expect a UPS to keep you running for hours or days. A rule of thumb that a major computer system company that I've had dealings with in the past has used, and they had a massive building filled with mainframes and mid-range computer systems and smaller systems as well. They had just enough UPS capacity to get the emergency generators online, and the emergency generators gave them just enough time to power everything down. They didn't even begin to try for a running extended period of time. One of the things that I really haven't talked about here is getting a generator. Generators are a good thing, but they can also cause more of a problem. There's only a few that I'm aware of that have the right kind or the proper kind of electronic filtering in place, so that as the generator kind of speeds up and slows down, that you don't have your own set of surges or drops to deal with. And that's an important thing to do. So looking at a generator is the absolute last thing I would do, because you've got to get several other things put in place. So, here in just a few minutes, we have talked about what to do before power loss, what to do after power is restored, and some things to consider doing to avoid damage to your IoT devices, because you may have one device you really love, and when you go to replace it, you find out the company's gone out of business, or that particular feature isn't there anymore, or it may not be available some period of time. So there are good reasons to try to be as proactive as you can on this one. And it's just one step at a time. Don't try to do this all overnight, but just graduate as you can. And some devices, regardless of the precautions you take, are going to fail. You can only do so much, but at least if you take reasonable, prudent precautions, you'll come out okay. So that's kind of the end of where we've been going. Like I said, so I'll start doing some of the teasers like the TV stations do. You'll start seeing this show up in videos probably next week, because I want several days to work with this, and then I'll do ongoing follow-ups to show you what I'm seeing with it, because I'll be moving my own IoT network over to this. First, I'm going to bring up just a device or two, so I'm not flooding it with devices. And also, you've seen me do several videos on the Traveler Smart Home. This, I think, is going to be very ideal, because it's, as you can see from the cover, it's small, it's compact, and it's going to be easy to carry with you, because especially when you're on a hotel or motel network or conference center network, you've got to protect yourself. And I think this stands a very good chance of being a good example, especially for traveling, but also for home as well, too. And we'll talk more in the coming weeks. So this is one of the few videos you won't see affiliate links in. That's because this was more kind of a chalkboard talk, but it was one that I felt we needed to have to kind of get you thinking. And please, as with any of the other videos, if you have any questions, reach out to me. I'll be happy to answer them. If you have any questions about looking for a particular kind of device or different configurations, there's all sorts of things we're going to be looking at here in the coming months. And I can already see I'm going to be doing videos well into next year. So thank you very much for your time on watching this video, because I have realized there's a lot of things that you could be doing. You know how to reach me, and let's do this safely, and we'll have more fun learning how to play with our devices that help us not have to work so hard physically, but use more of what's up here. So thank you very much for your time, and we'll see you